So Dave, a lot of the smartcrowds listening collateral talks about the use of concern corners to increase employee involvement. What exactly is a concern corner?
Yeah, so a concern corner is a means of giving employees a 24/7 opportunity to get something off their chest that's been nagging them or really worrying them. So it could be about their job, for example, the expectations placed on them, the quality of training they've had, etc. Or it could be more at the organisational level, so concerns over safety, mental health, well-being, that type of thing. I suppose the key issue is that the lack of effective listening to concerns is one of the main frustrations of the modern workforce. So employees have got perfectly valid concerns, but even if they do get the chance to raise them, they seldom get the attention they merit, and more often than not, doesn't lead to any change happening. So in addition to that, we know that most companies are grappling with the challenges of a hybrid workforce. So mixing office and home working, the problem this brings is much more difficult than ever for employees to grab some time with the appropriate person and get their concerns across. So added to this is a problem that lots of people often don't have the confidence to raise their valid concerns. So often that might be from a fear of raising their head above the parapet amongst their peers. So an effective listening programme needs to consider how it can be accessible to everyone, no matter where they work, what level of access they've got to managers, and how comfortable they are actually raising their concerns in the first place.
Okay, so what are some of the benefits to both the employee and the employer of opening up listening channels for concerns?
Yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, it's a trust thing. So where employees know that every concern that they raise is going to be given due attention, that they're going to be responded to fairly and consistently, and most of all actioned when something needs to be done, then a trust between the employees and management starts to build that becomes empowering. And the key to this is building trust not just at the top of the organisational level, but right down to local level. So by that I mean concerns must be able to be raised and aired properly and properly managed down at the team level. So around team processes or policies that are dealt with within that team. So the key to building that trust is to make it accessible and transparent to everyone, whether that's at the top of the organisation or team level, and then having online communities or channels for managing this is really important to create a sense of involvement and contribute to ongoing learning and improvement. Because what we're really doing here is we're creating the opportunity for leadership to learn about what's causing issues or friction at the grassroots level, and then for employees to find out what is being raised and improved as a result of that.
Okay, in theory that all makes sense, Dave, but what real practical advice can you give leaders looking to establish more effective listening to concerns?
It's a good question, Stuart. I think to start, a focus needs to be put on communicating the promise that's been made between the organisation and employees. So leaders stating very clearly that if you put your trust in us, then we will follow through. And that obviously means a leadership team that's got the training, the skills, the tools, ultimately the empowerment, I guess, so that they can actually follow through. So that's a key place to start. You also need to consider the scope of the programme. So as I mentioned earlier, this should be seen as a workforce involvement thing, a learning and improvement tool. So the concerns that are raised and progressed need to be of an appropriate nature for a visible, transparent process that everyone is able to see and get involved in. So there's always going to be a need to keep a separate process for handling highly confidential issues and concerns, whistleblowing things, that type of thing. These are going to have to be handled offline using current process. But the key takeaway here is what we're trying to create is opportunities for non-sensitive, non-confidential concerns and issues to be raised that can drive collaborative improvement across the workforce. And just to finish that off, some sort of moderation process can be really helpful here, because with the best will in the world, some things are going to come through that are best handled offline. Okay.
And do you have a preferred format for capturing concerns from employees, Dave?
Yep, we do, Stuart. So some people might think that just asking what's your concern is all that's needed, but I think that's missing some opportunities to gather value added information. So we recommend the format that I'll just bring up on screen here. So, well, obviously, first of all, what is your concern that you'd like to share with us? who's affected or who might be affected if it's not addressed. And that's going to help the people who are addressing the concern understand the context of it in relation to the people it's going to affect. And it can be important to avoid making subjective assessments from a single context. What's the impact if it isn't dealt with? And again, that's going to help people prioritise finding a resolution to it. And then also, what is your suggestion on how it could be addressed? And that can be quite an important thing here, especially if you are come up with an alternative suggestion that you understand where the original submitter, what their thought process is on that. So by capturing concern information in this way, what you're doing is you're giving the organisation the best chance of resolving it as effectively as possible.